Did the Dragon Ball side movies, specials, GT heroes, and video games all happen in alternate timelines of the Dragon Ball canon? No, and let me explain why. It has been a common misunderstanding that the Dragon Ball stories outside of the main story take place in separate timelines parallel to the current one like Future Trunks' timeline did from the Cell Saga, but we actually have confirmation directly in the series, both in anime and in manga, that this isn't the case. In the Dragon Ball Super manga, it is explained that the Silver Time Ring is a relic that allows one to travel into the future and back to the present, but the green-colored time rings are for traveling to parallel timelines adjacent to your present timeline that is specifically linked to your unique Silver Time Ring. These emerald time rings are created whenever history is altered by traveling into the past. Why is this relevant? Well, these are every timeline in Dragon Ball's canon, and they are all slightly different versions of the current timeline. Let's start with what we know about the first Divergent timeline. This timeline is described by Gawasu as a timeline that branched by a time machine created by Universe 12. Gawasu speaks of how they increased in number since last he checked. More than likely there was only one green time ring when he originally checked, because of the events of every cell and android involved event timeline would more than likely cause the future time rings to be created as well as the remaining events of the Goku Black arc. So let's list off the events we know for certain. By the end of the arc, the time rings accumulated are as such. There is one silver time ring and 5 green time rings for alternate timelines, though one of those time rings is eradicated because of the end of the Goku Black arc events. Also, as a side note, the Dragon Ball Super manga colorization miscolored one of the time rings to silver, which is actually incorrect, because a given timeline only has one silver time ring, and the other timelines are the green time rings, in the anime as well. This is consistent and is likely just a simple mistake, so I wouldn't give the artist too hard of a time. The first time ring is the current timeline the main story happens in. We will designate the first time ring as the time ring that was created when Universe 12 used their time machine to travel into the past, as mentioned by Gawasu. The second green time ring we will designate as the event Cell describes. He came from a timeline where somehow Trunks kills androids 17 and 18, and then Cell kills Trunks and steals his time machine, and reverts to his larval form to come to the present timeline. The third green time ring we will designate as when Trunks visits the present timeline to warn Goku and the Z-Fighters about the coming threat of the androids initially and kills King Cold and Mecha Frieza. The fourth time ring we will designate as when Trunks returns to the current timeline after leaving to help the Z-Fighters with the androids and Cell later on in the story. And the fifth time ring is described as being created specifically in the manga when Lord Beerus Hakai's Zamasu from existence because Zamasu can no longer carry out his plan to swap bodies with Son Goku in the present, creating a new timeline and the final green time ring. This happened because future Trunks traveled into the present to warn Goku and his friends about Goku Black, and it allows Beerus to alter the timeline. These are all the alternate and present timelines in Dragon Ball in the canon continuity of Akira Toriyama's story so far that we are aware of. This could very well change in the future with new lore additions and or retcons, but unless you really want to stretch things and say GT and a couple of the Z movies congruent with GT happens in the first green time ring timeline, I suppose you could, but like I said, it would be an extreme stretch and it wouldn't be consistent in the fact that the timeline variations aren't that extreme from one timeline to another in Dragon Ball, so it's very unlikely at best. But that's everything out there in the open. I've been meaning to make this video for a very long time, for years in fact. I've just never buckled down and put it together until now. It's something I really wanted to do, and I'm glad I finally took the time to do it. Would you guys like to see time travel delved into more deeply in lore? Maybe something like the Supreme Kind of Time and Toki Toki? Let me know in the comments.